of hazardous materials. It's a very difficult site to demolish. And what do you get for the cost of doing that? You get a piece of land or real estate that is almost valueless because it's too small to make a park out of, nor would it be attractive with buildings right up to it. It's too small to make any parking spaces, but perhaps a few. What would you get, 5 or 6? And the taxes that would be generated by a vacant lot are almost zero. Utilities, no income to the city, no activity, whatever, plus the disadvantage
of removing a historic building.
Exactly. Plus, I think
disadvantage. Removing, yeah.
And while people may complain about the appearance of the building now, if you remove it, now you've got a hole that will last for the foreseeable future, decades, maybe 50, 100 years. A hole that will constantly remind people that the city failed, and that once it's gone, you can't bring it back.
And people will look at the old postcards with pictures of the street with the Reid Hughes building there and say, gee, and what was it like if the building was still there or had been there? And it's like the buildings that they have demolished, that people didn't say enough to preserve some of the buildings on Waterfront Street, and they were beautiful.
Yes.
Architecturally beautiful buildings if you look at some of the old postcards.
Oh yes, yes. Some of them were designed by...
So we're trying to save as much as we possibly can.
For example, the Carroll building, the Flatiron building, was designed by Stephen C. Earle, who also designed Slater Memorial, the Park Congregational Church, and I think the home of Dr. Bacon, the minister.
Where's that?
No, that's on Beach Drive.
Okay.
But he also designed some of the buildings on Water Street that were demolished years ago, and where there's just nothing but very ugly modern development. So once you eliminate it, you can't bring it back. It's not a renewable resource.
That's right. Once it's gone, it's gone.
It's like an endangered species. Once you kill off the last of an animal, you can't bring it back.
Like the bald eagles. And
right.
Yeah. Why aren't any developers interested in developing the Reid Hughes building?
It's a good question. I think the truth of the matter is that there have been developers interested in developing Reid Hughes, but they have been discouraged. And part of it is that in cities today, where you've had any kind of revitalization and renewal, buildings being fixed up and so forth, the city has always taken an active role in doing that. The city has always, like in places like Portsmouth, New Hampshire, which is similar to Norwich, the city was very active in promoting that, in lending a hand and really working in partnership with private developers. If the private developers could do it right now and make money at it without any assistance, it would be done. But in order to see this kind of thing happen, it's this partnership between the public and the private sector that has really made a difference. And any developer that goes, the city needs to offer incentives to developers, not basically lay back and say, well, we're going to wait until we get a developer that's going to pay for everything, do everything themselves, where the city has to do nothing. That simply isn't going to happen. And the cost of doing nothing is the city is going to have to foot demolishing the building, which will be a big expense. So why not at least take that money that would be spent on demolition and spend it on an incentive to help the developer deal with the building? And let's face it, the reason the building is in such terrible condition is that the city has owned it for over 20 years and has not done the kind of maintenance and so forth needed to keep it up. If the city were a private property owner, the city would be going after them, issuing fines and so forth for having a blighted building. And yet the city, so the city's responsibility goes far beyond what that of a private property owner would do, because the city has to set the example. You know, I mean, and in some ways, I mean, look, the city hall they've done a wonderful job on, but the city owns many other properties in town or controls them. And when they let something like Reid Hughes go, it sends a signal to people. Well, if the city doesn't care enough to maintain or see that these buildings that it owns are brought back up, why should we? Why should we invest our money into the city of Norwich if the city isn't willing to do that? On the other hand, if the city does that and encourages development, I think we would see a lot more happening. And remember that the downtown is the most concentrated development in the city in terms of the grand list, in terms of the tax assessments and so forth. It pays a very large amount to the city. So it's in the city's interest to maintain the downtown and to actually improve it and to encourage development and to see these older buildings restored and put back into use, either fully or, I mean, even a building that's only partially used is not yielding the most it can for us. So we need to do better, and we can.
Question, why don't you think that the Norwich Community Development Corporation has taken steps to come up with a plan?
Well, I think that they have been working on that. It's been slow.
How do you think if people want to go forward with reconstruction of the Reid Hughes building, what steps do you think they should take? Do you think they should call City Hall and give their opinion to the mayor or the city council, or attend the meetings?
Well, I think actually, yes. I think the public needs to make its views known.
Write letters to the editor in Norwich Bulletin.
That kind of thing. And I think and in a thoughtful way. It's very easy to criticize. And it's very easy, and I think the path of least resistance is to say, oh, just get rid of it, tear it down. And then, yes, you do something quickly, it's not cheap, and the result is very poor. You don't have a good result. It's taking the time. And I must say that you know, we've had some conversations with NCDC, Norwich Community Development Corporation. I think they actually have done a lot of work. They have talked to prospective developers. I think, you know,
when's the next city council meeting they're going to be speaking about the Reid Hughes building?
I don't think it's going to be until September.
Okay. Well, I'm going to close the show. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
And
It's always a pleasure to be
yes,
here.
And I'll have you again join me on the show. I hope that you come to the meeting, city council meeting in September, and voice your opinion. Get your voice heard. The public's opinion is very important, especially on this matter, on all matters pertaining to Norwich, but write a letter, short letter to the Norwich Bulletin, the editors section. Call your city council, your mayor, Mayor Hinchy, and have your voice heard. And let's hope that we get progress done for Norwich. Thank you. I hope you enjoyed my show.